So, welcome back, students. We were discussing regarding specifications in the previous class. Okay, so we have learned regarding types of specifications in the previous class. What do we mean by specifications? Right? How do we write the specification? And we had looked into like a detailed specification, standard specification, and a general specification, and one more type of classification which had open specification, restricted specification, and then you had closed specification, right? So specification is provided so that you are able to execute the work properly in your site, right? You have some details or a description given to you as specifications. So we have learned regarding specifications. Then moving on, the first kind of specification that we will learn. Okay, specification has to go according to your chronology, which is executed in your site. Right, first thing is excavation of soil, then you have backfilling, right, then you have a foundation. Like that, in that serial order, you have to write a specification. So the first thing that we will learn is excavation. So before you start with writing of your excavation, remember how do you write your specification? Okay. So the main thing that you have to include. Okay. The first thing you have to include is materials. Regarding materials, you have to write. Okay. Regarding materials, always. Second, you have to write regarding the procedure of how it has to be constructed in the site. Okay. You have to write the procedure, or you have to write the workmanship. Okay. So materials, procedure, and then measurement measurement, how it has to be done, that is required for billing, right? Meter cube, square meters, all those things you have to prepare. How do you exactly measure, you have to mention. Then the fourth thing is regarding test. Okay, regarding tests or regarding performance, regarding test or regarding performance, so you have to write in this order itself. Okay, materials, then you have to write procedure or workmanship, then you have to write measurement, then you have to write the test or the performance requirements. Okay, so these are required, and this is how you have to write in your exam. Okay, so coming back to excavation. Always when you start writing excavation, all these things, any specification, the first thing that you ask yourself is, what is excavation? What? Okay, so what do you mean by excavation? Can anyone tell me in general terms, what do you mean by excavation? What do you mean by excavation? Any answer from your side? Please try to interact. What do you mean by excavation? You know what is excavation, but try to put it into words. You can try. You can try in your own words if you want, in your own language also if you want, if you are not able to tell in English. Excavation andre ಏನು?
Digging
What do
the
you call excavation in Kannada? What do you call it in Kannada, excavation?
ಯಾಕಟ್ಟೋದ್ರಿ
ಏನ್ರೆ? ತೆಗ್ಗ. Someone has answered. I am unable to hear clearly. Yes, you know what do you mean? What do you mean by excavation? You know
Hello.
what is it? Yes, Aziz.
A man-made cutting in earth.
A man-made cutting in earth. Okay, you are saying in earth. Okay, it is.
Yes, sir.
It is fine. Okay, whatever you have told, it is fine. Okay, excavation. So excavation is done usually under which level? Under ground level. Under ground level. Excavation is whatever you dig your earth or your soil under your ground, right? Below your ground level. So that is termed as excavation. Okay, so you know what is excavation, right? It may be in the form of a box, it may be rectangular or any other shape, right? Any other shape, or it may be in the form of a trench, right? It may be form of a trench. Okay, then why do we? The second thing that you ask yourself is, why do we need excavation? Why? Why do we need excavation? For what purpose do we need excavation? Can you tell me? Any one purpose? At least anyone? Any one purpose? See, so many of you are here, you are not answering. Right answer.
For
You know why it is required, but you are
foundation.
not answering. Don't feel shy. Your friends, I am your teacher. This is your class. We are here to teach. Why do we need excavation? For what purpose do we excavate the soil? Regarding work. Now at least can you try to answer? Why do we require excavation? Quickly have to answer. You don't have time. You told us to cover quickly, no? So you have to answer quickly.
For the foundation purpose.
For foundation, correct. For foundation purpose, you need excavation. Correct answer. For foundation, right? Or else if you want to construct a basement, then you need excavation. When you want to put a foundation for your column and all, then you need to excavate below ground level, right? We have many purposes for excavation. Mainly it is used for foundation and basement work. Okay. Then how do we construct or how do we do your excavation? That is the next question. How, what, why, and how? How is coming under specification? How do you exactly do it is coming under specification. How do you excavate below ground? Okay, so we'll learn how do you excavate now. Can you tell me what do you use to excavate? What are the methods that are used for excavation? Basic two methods that are used for excavation. Okay, I'll tell you. So it is manual excavation, manual, or you use equipments or use machinery, right? You use either equipments or you use machinery for excavation. If you are dealing with large quantities of excavation, right, and you can use manual labor for excavation, right? We have two types. So you can specify which type of excavation you are preferring in your specification document. Then moving on, what is the process we have learned now? Coming to starting of the work, how do you start your excavation? So you have to decide, I have told you, decide how many number of laborers or decide the number of equipments that are required, okay, based on your quantity. Based on your quantity and also on the type of soil. Based on the type of soil, you have to decide the number of laborers or the number of equipments that are required. Okay, quantity and type of soil. Then what do you do after you decide? You have to prepare. Yes, okay, so you have to prepare this kind of chart. You have to prepare this kind of drawing. What is this drawing now? What is this? Can you name it? What is this a particular drawing called as?
Central
Central line
line
diagram.
drawing, sir.
Yes, central line diagram. Okay, correct. Whatever you have told is correct. Central line diagram, but to specifically say this is central line diagram of foundation or column footings. Okay, central line diagram for column footings. So you can see these boxes. These are excavation pits that are required for each column. Okay, so you can see this is a combined footing for two columns, right? And you can see here also we have a combined footing, and these all are these isolated column footings. Okay, so and this is what you have to excavate. This portion you have to excavate. So this diagram you will be having in your hand. Okay, you will be having in your hand. Next, what you do? Next, what you do? You prepare like this line, right? You put line dories. You put line dories, and then you mark on your ground. You put line outs, right? So this is called as line out, making marking lines or doing line out on your ground, right? Once you do this line out, okay, using line dory, you line out and then you excavate. You can see in this picture they have excavated, okay, on the required size as the line out on this chart you see, and then you excavate, you mark and then you excavate exactly. Okay, you can see the line dory is passing like this. Okay, then using this line dory and the location that is transferred, you can see he's transferring it to the ground, right? And he's marking the column size, right? He's marking the column size below, right? See, that is then one more important thing that you have to take care under workmanship that you have to take care is you have to see that the horizontal faces are exactly horizontal, right? That they are level. The horizontal face, that is, sorry, the base, it is exactly horizontal or it is level, right? This base is exactly level or truly level, and this vertical face, right? This vertical face should be truly vertical. These vertical faces should be straight. It should not be inclined enough, right? So this you have to take care under workmanship. Next, we have done with that. Next, what do you do next after that? So you have to protect. So you can see here, when you are dealing with deep excavations, whenever we require to excavate to a larger depth, we have to provide what? We have to provide supports. Okay, we have to provide supports to your faces of your excavation, right? We have to provide support to your face of your excavation. So this is known as timbering. It is known as timbering. Okay, so we provide wooden flats or using steel, these kind of supports we provide so that the soil does not cave in. Okay, so soil does not move inside the pit. Okay, that you have to take care. So various methods and various materials and techniques are available for doing this timbering work. Okay. So all the sides need to be protected. That is one thing. Then what do you do of your excavated material? What do you do of this excavated material? What do you do of this excavated material? That is the next thing. Okay. So once you excavate, you can see here, once you excavate in this format, once you excavate, this is a trench which they are excavating, okay, using a excavator here, backhoe excavator. Then once you excavate, you have to excavate and you place it at the side. You have to place it at the side. Common sense, right? But do not place it just besides the pit, okay? It will again fall inside, right? It will cause problems. So you have to keep at least a distance of 2 meters. That is what is specified by the code, that you have to keep a distance of at least 2 meters. Okay, but that is not usually followed in site. But make sure whenever you are dealing with excavation, you keep your excavated material at least 2 meter side from the excavation part. Okay, excavated material we are done. Then if you have surplus material, if you have lots of material and you do not require that material, right? For example, you need you have excavated for basement. You do not require that particular soil. No? So what you have to do, you have to dump, right? You have to dump that soil. So surplus materials needs to be dumped at specified locations. Okay, you don't go and dump anywhere in your lakes or ponds or in low-lying areas. You should not dump. There are specified areas. There are landfills where you have to go and dump. Okay, that process of lifting and dumping your surplus soil is known as lead and lift. Lead and lift. Okay, that is known as lead and lift. Okay, so we are done with how exactly you have to excavate. Okay, regarding workmanship, I have told you. Regarding excavated material, also I have told you. Then the next thing is protection to existing lines. Okay, protecting to existing lines. So you can see in this image various kind of timbering work, various types and methods of timbering work is shown. Okay, especially for trenches. This is for trenches. Okay, so you can see they are providing supports to the soil so that the soil does not come inside. So this is wrong. You should not place your soil just besides the excavation. It will again fall inside, right? It will cause problems. You have to keep at least 2 meters gap from excavation pit and the stored soil. Okay, so you can see this is timbering which is provided over here, timbering, so that the soil. So this is a loose, very loose soil, right? It will not stand if you excavate. It is like sand. It is non-cohesive, so it will fall back inside, and it will collapse. So because of that, specifically for these cohesion-less soils, you have to provide this your specification. Okay, what kind of timbering and how it has to be supported, all those things has to be mentioned by you. Okay, next thing, whenever you have a certain kind of lines going through your underground line, right? You have excavated and you have found that there is a water pipe, or there is a gas pipeline, right? There are many pipelines which are going, like electrical lines may be going, water lines, then you have sewer lines also, right? So you should take care that they should not be disturbed, right? That is the responsibility of the contractor, that it should not be disturbed. These lines which you can see over here, it should not be disturbed and it should not be damaged, right? You have to take care and you have to protect these existing lines which are already in the ground. Okay. Now regarding measurement, how do you measure? In what unit do you measure? Can you answer? What unit do you use for measurement? What unit do you measure your excavation quantity?
Cubic meter.
Cubic meter, right? Cubic meter, or what you call as meter cube, right? So you measure your quantity in cubic meter, remember. So this also you have to mention in a specification, what is the unit of measurement of your work, right? So for regarding your excavation, it is to be measured in cubic meter. So you have to mention this. Next, sometimes when you are excavating, you tend to find some valuable materials. Like, see, he has found some valuable materials. Then during excavation, you might find some ancient remnants of a civilization, right? And what do you do if you find this? You keep it in your pocket and go home.
Yes, sir.
It
Yes,
is your
sir.
it is your property.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you find
sir.
any valuable, it will be your property.
So if you have
Yes,
bought
sir.
that land, then it is our property.
Okay, so the case is if you have found something and if you have not reported it to the government, you can keep it, right? But you are excavating and you find this kind of ancient remnants on your field or your ground. Then what do? You break it and you throw it away. You have to report to the government, no, so that they take care of this remnants, because they are history, right? They are history. They give us an idea of how the people used to be in the previous ages, right? So what they'll do, the archaeology people will come and they'll sit like this and they'll take care. They'll do kabja on your land, and your land is gone now. Because once archaeological people come and say that this is important, then this will come under UNESCO and all. ESI will come and they'll take over your land, and you have to forget your land, right? So pray that you do not find any of these kinds of things in your land. If these kinds of things are okay, if you find, you have to. The thing is, you have to report to the government, and it is the property of government. But if you do not report and you keep it in your pocket, then that is left to you. Okay, but if you find any ancient things that are found, like ancient temples and or are being found nowadays, many temples are being excavated, right? So if that is the case, then archaeology people will come and do kabja on your land. So then you have to forget. Okay, so that is there regarding if you find any valuables. Okay, the one more thing that we are left out with is rate. Okay, rate. You have to mention rate of your excavation. What is the rate that it is there that you have to do? And this rate, okay, it includes your timbering work also. That support work you are providing, now that cost also it has to be included in your rate, whatever you are writing down, right? So it has this timbering and the soil rate, excavation rate usually, and then also this timbering work also if needed, right? That also has to be included. Okay, so the excavation rate mainly depends on the type of soil, right? Type of soil, whether you have loose soil, or if the soil is very hard. Okay, hard soil. So which type of soil has more rate, right? Which soil is costlier to excavate, loose or hard? Which soil is costlier to excavate, loose soil or hard soil?
Hard soil.
Hard soil, right?
Hard soil.
Obviously, hard soil requires more effort, right? It requires the machinery for excavation. Manual labor is unable to excavate, right? If it is a very hard soil bedrock, so you need equipment, special equipments to excavate. So it will be more costlier. Okay, but you'll get a good foundation in a hard soil, right? If you have soft soil, you have to again go deep to find a bedrock. So some advantages, disadvantages will always be there. Okay, so this is regarding excavation. Okay, this is regarding excavation. So as I've told you, first thing you have to prepare your land. You have to prepare your land. Then you have to make the line out. Then you have to excavate, right? Excavate. Make sure that the vertical and horizontal are true. Then provide timbering if needed, right? Timbering. Then you have to write the rate. You have to write the unit of measurement. Also take care that you do not disturb any existing lines. Okay, that is the responsibility of the contractor. Okay, and if you have any waterlogging, then what do you do if you have waterlogging? What do you do if you start to excavate and you find a water table and water starts to come at the surface? That is called as waterlogging, because the groundwater table is high, right? This is your ground level and you have to excavate up to this level, but your groundwater level is here, water table is here. So your soil will start to be waterlogged. Excavation. So what do you have to do? You have to dewater it. Dewatering has to be whenever your water starts to ingress in your particular excavation, you have to dewater it, right? Take care that you lower the water table and then you start your construction. Okay, and I've told you, if you have surplus soil, you have to either you have to not throw it away anywhere. You have to dump it at proper site. Okay. After excavation is done, so what you have to do, the next thing, always you have to do backfilling, right? Backfilling and plinth filling. Okay, these are two different kinds. Backfilling is different, plinth filling is also different. Okay. Coming to backfilling. So as I've told you, ask yourself 3 questions. So what is backfilling? Why is this backfilling required? And how do you do backfilling? So what is backfilling? Backfilling is nothing but filling up your soil, right? Filling up your excavated part, whichever after your construction is done, right? After you place your column, right? After you place your column over here, then what you have to do, the remaining part you have to fill it back with the soil, right? You usually with the excavated soil itself, you will fill, and certain things have to be taken care while filling it. Well, we'll discuss that now. Okay, so that is known as backfilling. Okay, it may be trench, okay, or it may be a isolated column footing like this. Okay, whatever is the case, whenever you require the thing to be filled, you have to fill it with soil. Okay, so coming to backfilling, as I've told you, we need to fill and we need to make it, we need to make the ground level back, right? So coming to backfilling, we know what is backfilling. Now, why is backfilling done? I've told you. Now, how do we exactly carry out backfilling? So you can see once excavation is done and your concreting and your construction is done. See, they have constructed the column over here. Now this part needs to be backfilled, right? The remaining part, this gap has to be filled and it has to be brought back to level, right? Ground level. So that is what is backfilling. So what do? You stock up the soil at the side, right? You either stock and the extra surplus soil is gone for landfill. It is gone for landfill, and the stockpiled soil is used in backfilling. Okay, it is used in backfilling. Okay, if the soil is not proper, you can import proper soil. Okay, you can import your backfill. Okay, that is also there. So our excavation is done, construction is done, and the remaining thing is filled using your soil. Okay, so that is regarding backfilling. Now, what is plinth filling? Okay, so plinth filling, I'll show you. So this is plinth filling. Whatever he is doing is plinth filling. You know, we have to make a plinth beam, right? Plinth beam, and then you have to fill, because your plinth level is always higher than your ground level, right? You can also observe here that the ground is lower, and this is your plinth level. So you have to fill that, right? You have to fill. So you have to fill and you have to compact it properly. So this person is compacting the soil over here. Okay. First, we'll look into backfilling and then we will move on to plinth filling. Okay. So you can see the column is erected. The column foundation is done. The column is also erected over here. Concreting is done. Curing is done. All the things are done. Then this remaining part you have to backfill. Right? Can you tell now what is the quantity required? What is the quantity required for backfilling? How do you calculate it? How do you calculate the quantity of backfilling? Is the excavation quantity equal to backfilling quantity? Can you answer that question?
No, sir. Exhaustion
No,
quantity
sir.
minus column quantity.
Minus what? You are
Column
saying
size, sir.
column size, right? Column size, or whatever you say, whatever is constructed, right? This size, whatever it is constructed here, and whatever PCC bed you lay, right? PCC bed, some thickness, and then you lay some foundation work, and then you go for column, right? So you excavate from here, you excavate from this level, right? So this is your excavated part. So remaining, you minus this, whatever you have filled with concrete, right? You minus from excavated meter cube, and that is what is your backfilling quantity, right? You have to minus this quantity, okay, from your excavation quantity, and then you have to calculate your backfilling quantity. Okay, so backfilling quantity is also in meter cube. It is also in meter cube or cubic meters. Okay, so that is then you can see that they are doing the trench filling over here. Trench filling is being done, right, using a backhoe loader. Then if you want to fill like this larger quantities, they have what they have done, they have order or they have imported soil and they are backfilling it, right? Then you can use a backhoe loader or what you call as a JCB, right? They are using JCB and they are pushing the soil inside, right? They are pushing the soil which is kept outside, that they are pushing inside, right? That can be done. Then you have these kind of special machines. Special machines, you can see it is picking up the soil which is kept side, right? You can see that it is not exactly stockpiled here. It is stockpiled by a certain distance, right? 2 meters, as I've told you, you have to keep a cap from the trench, right? It is picking up the soil and it is throwing it inside, right? Such special kind of machines also you can use. Okay. So one care that you have to take while backfilling, that directly do not fill, okay, do not directly fill whatever is your material. You have to fill it in layers. Okay, you have to fill it in layers. So usually each layer, you can see each layer here is made up of 250 mm. Okay, you can have a thumb rule of 250 mm for each layer, 250 mm or 25 centimeters. Okay. Now regarding the material, the first thing, as I've told you, regarding first thing that you have to write is material. What is the material that you are using? So the material has to be it has to be good material. Okay, it can be moram, right? It can be moram, it can be red moram. Then you can have a gravel mix and sand. Gravel mix and sand. You can also have broken bricks, right? Broken bricks. So what do you mean by moram? Moram is nothing but powdered rock. Okay, moram is nothing but powdered rock. So this is preferred for backfilling. Okay, usually preferred for plinth filling. Okay, moram. Then you have gravel mix and sand and broken bricks. Okay, you can use this. So these are natural. Some commercial products like fly ash, they mix fly ash with some high plasticity clay. Okay, highly plastic clay they make a mixture and they backfill. Okay, that can be used. Or one more new thing that usually now they are using is called as CLSM. Okay, so this material is a self-compacting material. It is low in strength. Okay, it is low in strength. Okay, and that can be used as a backfill. Okay, as a certain new commercial products have arrived. Okay, instead of using these natural products like moram, gravel, sand, all these things, some commercial products are available that can be used for backfilling. Okay, so we have to take care that you have to fill it in layers and we have to compact each layer properly. Okay, each layer you have to wet the layer first, right? Sprinkle some water and then compact it, and then you have to lay the next layer, okay, and then compact it. Okay, so in this fashion you have to backfill. Okay, don't just pour your soil back in and then leave it. Okay, that is unprofessional. Okay, then if any pipes are there, you have to slowly fill below the pipe first. Okay, below the pipe you have to fill properly. Then the side you have to fill, on the left side and on the right side you have to fill, and then you have to slowly compact it. Make sure that you do not disturb or you do not damage the existing lines. Okay, so that is the case when you have existing lines underground. Okay, in PWD works, regarding PWD works, backfilling materials, they should be got from approved sites. Okay, approved sites. So there are certain quarries and there are certain stores from which you have to buy. They are approved by the PWD. Okay, you have to take the material from them only whenever you are dealing with PWD works that are regarding backfilling. Okay, and measurement, I have told you we are measuring it in meter cube. So we have discussed regarding materials. We have discussed regarding what? Second thing I have told you, workmanship I have told you. Then measurement, right? Measurement. Then testing. There is no testing here if you properly ram. And the main thing is you have to take care in your workmanship, right? So this is regarding your backfilling. Okay, regarding backfilling. Now coming to plinth filling. The same things apply for your plinth filling. Okay, same thing. Material also, the same materials you can use. Materials. Then workmanship I've told you, in layers. In layers you have to fill properly, you have to wet, and you have to tamp, right? So this person is tamping or he is ramming, right? He is ramming and he is compacting the soil. So that has to be done. And okay, so that is regarding, and measurement is also done in meter cube. Measurement is done in meter cube. So this is regarding what? Backfilling and plinth filling. So we are done with excavation, we are done with backfilling, we are done with plinth filling. So let us just look into what they have mentioned. So whatever I have explained, right, whatever I have explained, the same thing they have mentioned here in points. Okay, so this is how you can write a specification. Okay, you have to write in points. So this is regarding your excavation. Now earthwork in filling, you can see here earthwork in filling. So main thing you have to take care that the backfill that you use, it is free from any deleterious material like any salt, like any organic matter. So anything of such content should not be present in your backfilling. Okay, any material which you are using for backfilling should be free from this kind of things, right? Deleterious material should be not present. Okay, so we should not use highly expansive soils like black cotton soil. So these black cotton soil, they are very expansive in nature, right? They expand and they contract very much. So these should not be used as a backfill. Okay, so regarding trench filling, you can read whatever I've explained is mentioned over here. Okay, trench filling. Now moving on to plinth filling. Plinth filling, you can use muram, as I've told you, muram, or you can use sand. So muram is what? Muram, I've told you, it is powdered rock. Okay, muram is powdered rock. Okay, that is mentioned over here, disintegrated rocks. Okay, so they should be obtained from approved pits and quarries. Approved pits and quarries. Okay, so sand should be used, but usually now sand is very scarce, right? Very scarce. So we are going for commercial products like M sand, right? M sand, and I've told you a mixture of fly ash and plastic clay, high plasticity clay. You can go for that. And one more material I've told you, CLSM, that is controlled low strength material. Controlled low strength material, right? It is just like earth. It is just like this earth, right? But it is a mixture. It is a mixture of fine aggregate. It is a mixture of mortar, right? Mortar and fine aggregate and soil. So this is there. Then shingles. Shingles are, let me show you shingles. I think we have shingles. I've shown. Okay. So I've missed this image regarding shingles. So you can use shingles. They should be clean and free from foreign matter. As I've told you, everything should be clean. Whatever you are using, material you are using for backfilling. Okay. Then I've told you filling should be done in layers, right? It should be done in layers, and each layer it should not exceed 15 centimeters. Okay, you can use an adopt a thumb rule of 15 to 25 centimeters. Okay, and then as I've told you, it should be rammed and it should be consolidated properly, each layer. Okay, measurement, regarding measurement is to be done in cubic meters. Measurement, it should be done in cubic meters. So this is regarding earthwork and backfilling. So is it clear, guys? Earthwork and backfilling, the first two things that are common in any construction that you go, any building construction. I'm telling specifically.
Sir, CLSM long form.
CLSM is a controlled low strength material. Controlled low strength material. So I think some of you are doing project on this, right? I was there for a phase where some of you were using this material, CLSM, controlled low strength material, which is used as a backfill. It is now used heavily in China. Okay, this is this type of material. So it is very good compared to your earth. Wherever you are preparing embankments, right? Embankments for road work. So this material is used for base course, right? So this is very good quality material and it is very cheap. And the properties are very high. Instead of using earth, they are using this material. Okay, so shall we move on to the next type of specification that we should look into? Shall we move on to the next one? Yes, sir. No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So next specification we will be looking into is for brickbat lime concrete. Brickbat lime concrete. So this is also sometimes what we use PCC, right? We use PCC, plain cement concrete, or we use brickbat lime concrete. Okay, two kinds, but usually now PCC is used. This brickbat Brick bat lime concrete is not in use these days. Okay, we usually use PCC. So once you excavate, after you excavate, right, your excavation for a column footing or isolated column footing is ready. Then what you do, you lay your PCC bed, right? PCC bed of say 25 mm thickness, 15 centimeter thickness, whatever is mentioned. Okay, so you lay this. So it is either PCC or it is brick bat lime concrete. So you can see this is laying process and then this is after finishing. Okay, on this your column footing will rest. On this our column footing will be resting. Okay, so you can see this is PCC, right? This is your sand. It is your ground. On that you can see your PCC bed is laid. Here also you can observe this is your PCC bed. PCC bed, you have your foundation and your column. Okay, so the first thing after excavation is your PCC, which you have to lay. Okay, coming to PCC, coming to brick bat. Okay, not in PCC, we are looking into brick bat lime concrete. Brick bat. Okay. So the first thing is material, right? Material you have to discuss. So what is the material that you have to use? Okay, what is the material? So you can use surki. Surki, you can use surki. What is surki? Surki is brick powder. Surki is brick powder. Okay, it has to be clean. Brick powder you have to use. That is what you can use. Then you have to use sand, right? Sand. Then you have to use cinder. Cinder. Okay, cinder is called, what is cinder? Cinder is solidified lava. Okay, broken pieces of solidified lava or broken pieces of igneous rocks. Okay, so these three materials you can use as fine aggregates. Fine aggregates, any of these materials, sand, surki or cinder. Okay, fine aggregates. Next, coarse aggregate. What do you use as coarse aggregate? Now, coarse aggregate. Okay, as the name itself here, you can use brick bats. Brick bat is your coarse aggregate. Brick bat is your coarse aggregate. Okay, what about the size? What about the size? They have to be 40 mm. 40 mm or down. 40 mm or down size, coarse aggregate. Now, what about binding material? What about the binding material? What is the binding material? It is not cement, it is lime. Okay, binding material is lime. Okay, so the concrete here which you are preparing is using lime. Okay, and brick bat is the coarse aggregate. So usually the ratio, okay, usually the ratio of your lime, fine aggregate and your coarse aggregate. Okay, it is 1:2:2. Okay, 1:2:2, and this is usually done by volume. Okay, batching is done by volume. So this is regarding brick bat. Okay, brick bat. Now mixing, it has to be proper. Mixing has to be proper. All those things have to be taken care of properly. You have to mix your concrete, and then you have to lay in layers. Okay, always you have to lay in layers, and usually in 15 centimeter thick layers. 15 centimeter thick layers. Make sure that it is properly compacted. Right, air bubbles and all are removed. Properly rammed. Properly compacted. Okay. After that is done, after laying is done, what you have to do? You have to do curing. You have to do curing. So how many days you have to cure? You have to cure for 7 days. That you have to mention. Curing you have to mention, and the days you have to mention. How many days it has to be cured? So usually 7 days is enough for PCC. Sorry, not for PCC, for brick bat lime concrete. Okay. And what about measurement? You recall what was the unit for PCC? What was the unit for measurement for PCC? Can you recall? Unit for measurement of PCC?
Meter squares.
Meter square.
Cubic meter.
Some
Meter cube.
meter cube. You have changed. Balu, yakre.
Cubic meter.
Meter square. Now you are saying cubic meter. It is cubic meter. Okay, it is cubic meter. What Uttam said, it is correct. Okay, so cubic meter. You measure your concrete. Okay, concrete always measured in cubic meter. Okay, remember that. So you measure it in cubic meter. So we are done with brick bat lime concrete, or usually what we use now is PCC. So we are done with material. We are done with workmanship. I told you we have to mix it properly. You have to lay it in layers, and you have to mention the proportions. Okay, proportions. Then curing you have to mention. Then you have to mention measurement. How you have to measure. How to measure that is required for billing. Okay. So this is regarding brick bat lime concrete, or what we usually use nowadays is PCC. PCC, what is PCC? Plain cement concrete. Okay. So after this is done, the next thing that we have to look into is DPC. So what is this DPC? What is the full form of this DPC? Can anyone tell me?
Damn-proof course.
Damp-proof course. ಯಾಕ್ರಿ damp-proof course ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕು ಅದು? Why do we provide this damp-proof course?
To reduce the dampness.
Dampness, reduce, huh? I think you know what is damp-proof, but you are saying it wrong. To reduce, huh?
To prevent
ವಾಟರ್
vertical
ಎಂಟ್ರಿ
movement.
ಆಗ್ಬಾರ್ದಂಗ್ ನೋಡ್ಕೊ.
Someone said prevent.
Prevent vertical movement of water.
Okay, so now that is perfect. Okay, to prevent the vertical ingress of water, right? Ingress of water, so that the dampness from the ground level does not enter a superstructure, right? So because of that, you have to avoid that, you have to provide this layer, that is your damp-proof course layer. You can see they have provided a damp-proof course layer, so that a moisture from the ground does not travel vertically and enter into your superstructure. So that is damp-proof course. Now, where is it placed on? Can you tell me what is it placed on? On what level it is placed on? Some beam, right? Some beam we prepare and then we placed, or some level, which you call as PL. Recall? Right? It is placed at plinth level. Okay. So you can see plinth level is always higher than your ground level. Okay. So you prepare it and you place it on plinth, on your plinth. Okay, so what about the proportion? What materials do you use? What materials do you use for preparation of this damp-proof course? What are materials do you use? So first thing, yes, someone.
Water repellent chemicals like stearic acid is used.
Yes, correct. So along with cement, along with fine aggregate, and in some cases also they use coarse aggregate, right? Along with this, you have to add water, this thing, right? Admixtures which prevent your water to travel through your concrete, right? That has to be added along with this. Okay, waterproofing compounds you have to add. So various kinds of waterproofing compounds are available, and the famous company, which is the famous company that we usually use, something starting with doctor. Company name I'm talking about.
Dr. Fixit.
Right. So that is that company provides what? Waterproofing compound, right? Dr. Fixit. That is the name of the company. Okay, so we are done with materials. I have told you what all materials we are required. I have told you proportioning, right? We are using cement, fine aggregate, coarse aggregate, and waterproofing compound. Okay, proportioning has to be provided as per your design. Then thickness. The thickness is usually 25 centimeters. You can see, sorry, it is not 25, it is 25 mm to 40 mm. Okay, 25 mm to 40 mm. Now, certain things are common in every specification, like the materials, like your coarse aggregate, fine aggregate, all those things have to be clean, right? And all of them should not have any deleterious materials. They should be sound. They should not have any cracks, right? Coarse aggregate, especially. And then cement should be fresh, right? Cement should be fresh, and they should satisfy the requirements, whatever it is used for. That things are common in every specification. Okay, that thing you have to mention. Next, regarding mixing, right? Regarding workmanship, you have to tell now next. So regarding mixing, you have to tell proper mixing has to be done. How mixing has to be done, you have to mention. Then you have to prepare your base first. You have to prepare this base. Okay, plinth level you have to prepare. How do you prepare? So the bricks, you can see bricks you have to lay, right? On the brick you are laying on the brick. So the frog of the brick meaning you have this kind of indentation on a brick, right? You can see that this is having some indentation, right? Usually if you see a brick from the top, you have this kind of hole, right? So this is called as a frog, right? So that is to be placed bottom. Okay, that has not to be placed in this fashion. It has to be placed facing downward. Okay, it has to be placed facing downward, so that you have a level surface for your DPC. Okay, so that you have to mention clearly. Then you prepare your base properly. The frog of the brick should be facing downwards, and then you have to lay your DPC. You have to mix properly, and you have to lay in properly. You have to lay the DPC properly. Okay, then next thing that you have to mention after you lay, after it hardens, you have to mention curing. That you have to mention regarding curing. So curing, usually how many days you require? 3 days to 7 days curing. Then measurement, regarding measurement now, how do you measure your DPC? So whenever you are dealing with DPC, right, whenever you are quantity, you are measuring your quantity, they will be telling you 25 mm thick DPC, 25 mm. This thickness in the name itself. In the name itself, they are mentioning this thickness. So you have to not include that thickness, or what we call as depth, in your measurement sheet. Right? You have to not consider that in your measurement sheet. So if you delete that the depth, if you do not consider, you are left with length and breadth. So what is the length? Length is this part. Okay, length is this part, and breadth is what? This. The breadth is this. So you are covering surface area. Okay, surface area, and the thickness is the specification which is mentioned in the name itself. Okay, thickness is mentioned in the name. So it will be, measurement will be in meter square. Okay, DPC will not be in meter cube, it will be in meter square. Okay, is it clear? No problem. DPC, have you understood how to write the specification? First material, then proportioning, then mixing, workmanship, right? This is common for all. Material, proportion, mixing, then workmanship, then anything regarding curing and all those things, curing, and then measurement, how it has to be measured. Okay, so this is the chronology which you have to mention. Okay, always. Next, after DPC is over, the next thing that we'll look into is now stone masonry. Do you recall anything regarding stone masonry? When have you studied stone masonry? Which semester?
Third semester.
Third semester. At least you remember which semester you have studied that. Others? Do you recall anything regarding stone masonry or any types of stone masonry? Do you recall types of stone masonry? I think I've mentioned it in the slide. I think I've mentioned it there. Okay, so we'll study regarding stone masonry. We'll study regarding various types of stone masonry and their specification. Stone masonry and the specification. Now, usually stone masonry is provided where? Stone masonry is provided in load bearing or up till your plinth, right? Up till your plinth, your stone masonry is used. And above your plinth, your brickwork is used, right? Brickwork in superstructure. And the stone masonry work in below your ground level, right? Up to plinth level, you can say. So you need to know the specification of your stone masonry, how to write the specification, what all things are to be mentioned in the specification of your stone masonry. So first thing we'll look into is we'll recall what are the types of stone masonry. So we have coursed and uncoursed stone masonry, we have random rubble masonry, and we have ashlar masonry. Coursed and uncoursed, random rubble, and we have ashlar. Okay, so these are the types, and we will be looking into random rubble, coursed, and ashlar coursed. Okay, so first thing that we will be looking into is coursed rubble masonry. So coursed, it is not COAR. COAR depicts what? COAR. What is the difference between COARS, course, and this course? What is the difference between these two words? Yes.
Size layer, sir.
Which is size?
Course.
Which depicts size?
Above one, sir. Above one layer, size matter.
This thing tells you about size, and this thing tells you about
layer.
Layers. Okay, correct. Whatever you have told is correct. So the first thing tells you what it is regarding size, or it is regarding size, right? Coarse meaning it is larger size, and fine, which is opposite of coarse, means smaller size, right? Fine and coarse, right? Fine aggregate, coarse aggregate. So that is regarding this, and this coarse is what is depicting layers. It is coursed. It is in layers, right? You do your bachelor's course, then you do your MTech course, right? Then you do your PhD course, right? It is one after the other. That is depicting layers, or it is depicting a sequence. this coarse. Okay, so remember the difference and do not write coarse masonry. Okay, do not write in this form, coarse masonry. It gives a wrong meaning. So coarse, as you've told, coarse meaning layers. Can you identify layers? So you can see this is placed in layers. 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layer, 3rd layer, or you can call 4th, 5th. You can see they are placed in layers, right? So they have mentioned this as coursed, okay, coursed. But now we have understood what is meant by coursed. So here it is not coursed because you cannot see any layers, right? You cannot find or you cannot identify any layers. Right? So this is uncoursed, or it is called as random. Okay. And whenever you use stones, okay, whenever you use stones which are of random size, okay, random size, they are not, and they are not proper, they are not proper sized, or they are not faced like this, and they are not, their faces are not regular, they are not regular, they are any random shape, right? So this is coarse, or what you call as rubble, sorry, we call it a rubble. So you can see the material that we have used here is rubble. Okay, we have used rubble and not properly faced or properly trimmed stone, right? So this is not a stone, rubble masonry. Okay, so this is random masonry. This is random, wherein you do not have what? You do not have coarse, right? But it is but you are using rubble. But you are using rubble. Both of these are using stones, okay, which are not properly sized, right? Both of these are rubble, but this is random rubble and this is coursed rubble. Okay, so now we are dealing with this coursed rubble. We are looking into specifications for this thing. Okay, this type of masonry, stones are arranged in a course or in layers. Okay, that is, stones are placed in horizontal layer, right? Horizontal layers we can identify. That's why it is called coursed rubble masonry. Okay, so I hope this coursed rubble masonry is clear. I hope you have recalled. Okay, so you can see an example. You can see examples of coursed rubble masonry. So this is also coursed rubble masonry. You can identify layer, right? One layer is here, second layer is here, right? You can identify layers. So this is coursed rubble masonry. This is what? This is also coursed. You can see one layer is here, and you can identify one more layer. Can you identify? No, I think this is not coursed. This is uncoursed, or what you call as random rubble masonry. Random rubble masonry. Okay. So you can see how it is laid. You can see how it is laid, right? You have to use mortar. You have to use mortar in between, and you have to lay. This is also random rubble masonry. You can see it is random rubble masonry. Okay. So what you have to take care? I have told you regarding materials. We have to use stones. We have to use stones. Okay, we are using stones, and they have got where these stones are acquired from. Where are these stones acquired from? These stones are acquired from quarries. Okay, where are acquired from quarries, designated quarries. Then main thing that you have to take care that these stones should not have any cracks, right? These stones should not have any cracks in them. Okay, so it will cause the failure of a structure if there is any load coming on top of it. Okay, so stones should not have any cracks. They should be free from any defects. Okay, and make sure that the stones are of uniform quality and color. Okay, the stones are of uniform quality and color. Okay, now coming to mortar. You use sand, right? You use sand as fine aggregate. Then you use cement. Okay, sand and cement, and you prepare your mortar of required proportion. Okay, of required proportion, and then you use that to prepare your random rubble masonry or your coursed rubble masonry. Okay, then once you have started to lay, once you have started to prepare this, you have to take care that the walls are vertical, right? That the wall is vertical, or whatever you are constructing, make sure that it is vertical, right? So how do you take care? Using this particular instrument, right? What is this instrument called as?
Plumb bob.
Correct, plumb bob. So he is using a plumb bob to check the verticality, right? He is using a plumb bob to check the verticality. So coming to layers, make sure at each time you raise by 30 centimeters. Okay, you raise by 15 to 30 centimeters throughout. Right, you can see it is raised throughout by some 30 centimeters. Right, and when that is done, you can next lay the 30 centimeter layer. Okay, so take care that you lay in layers and you do not construct a full like this and then you construct like this. Okay, do not construct in this fashion. Construct in layer by layer, say 15 to 30 centimeter layers. Okay, now we'll look into one specific thing which is regarding this stone masonry. One particular thing is there that is called as hearting. Okay, hearting. So this particular center portion here, okay, this is your face, this is your other face. The center part which is filled with mortar, okay, filled with mortar and smaller stones, it is your hearting, right? So hearting, or what we call as interior filling, should be proper. Okay, it has to be proper because that is what is taking the load, and because of that it has to be very proper. And do not use any chips. Okay, smaller stone which have broken up, right? Chips. We should not use any chips in our hearting portion. Okay, so that you have to take care. Okay, and then this particular thing, what I'm showing here. Okay, this particular thing you can see at the edges. Okay, you lay one brick in this side in this fashion and then the other in this fashion. Okay, alternate. You can see alternate they are laid. Right, so this you have to maintain in your stone masonry. Okay, take care that at the edges this formation is to be maintained. Okay, then what are these called as? These are called as coins. Coins, coins. Like how you spell your coins, no? Coins, the same thing, but it is written using Qu, coins. So these coins should be placed in this fashion. Okay, take care. Next, certain stones are placed. Okay, one particular stones at each at an interval. Okay, at an interval they are placed like this. These are called as bond stones. Bond stones. So why do we require bond stones? So if you do not provide bond stones, they have not provided any bond stones. So the faces will fall on either on the other side, right? You can see that because there is no bond, they'll simply split and they'll fall down, right? It is splitting and it is falling down. So to prevent that, you have to provide these kind of bond stones in between. Okay, so take care while preparing using stone masonry. You have to provide these bond stones. Okay, bond stones have to be provided so that your faces are interlinked, right? Your faces are interlinked and they do not split and they do not fall apart. Next, so we are done with materials. I've told you regarding materials. I've told you regarding workmanship, right? Workmanship. Next, after your construction is over, what you have to do? You have to cure, right? Because there is mortar, because we are using cement, right? Because we are using cement, so we have to use mortar. So that has to be cured. So curing of 7 days is required. Okay, 7 days curing, 7 days curing is required. And once curing is done, what you can do, you can write regarding measurement. Measurement. So how is this measured? Which meter square or meter cube? Measurement. How do you measure? Meter square or meter cube? Not the answer, Bega.
Meter cubes.
Meter cube, no, meter cube. You have done it in your first module, right? You have estimated the size stone masonry, right? You have estimated the quantity of size stone masonry. So recall, you have measured it in cubic meters, right? Cubic meters or meter cube. Okay, so that you have to mention at the last, cubic meters. Okay, so I hope this random rubble masonry is, sorry, not random. We are dealing with coarse rubble masonry, coarse rubble masonry. Is it clear, coarse? Is coarse rubble masonry clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, others, many of you are here. Others, please reply so that
Yes, sir.
we know that you are here. Do not make me call out names. I need everyone to answer. Have you understood, guys? Please answer.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. Others, quickly reply. Okay, so if you understand this coarse rubble masonry, if you have understood this, you will easily understand ashlar masonry. Ashlar, right? We have looked into coast and uncoast. Okay, coast and uncoast. Uncoast is nothing but random rubble. Okay, uncoast. Then next thing that you have to look into is ashlar. Ashlar masonry. Ashlar masonry. Okay, so this is ashlar masonry. You can see finely cut and dressed stones. Finely cut and dressed stones. So you can see these stones are properly cut. Their faces are proper, right? They are vertical. They are properly horizontal, and they are textured. Okay, so when you use these kind of stones, you are naming it as ashlar masonry. Okay, ashlar masonry. So various patterns can be followed in ashlar masonry. So you can observe random pattern. This one is random, and then there is stretcher bond. If you can recall, so stretchers are laid, and then you have random, coast, ashlar, random, coast, ashlar. Right, like you have a coast rubble, coast stone masonry, which you have studied above. Similarly, you have coast ashlar masonry. You can see there are layers. 1 layer, 2 layers, and in between you have random arrangement. In between these layers, you have random arrangement of stones. Okay, and this is coast ashlar. Okay, coast ashlar with banding. You can see that there is band over here. So whichever you want to follow, you are the engineer. You have to decide which kind of pattern you want to follow, and based on that pattern, you have to mention that particular thing in your specification. Okay, you have to mention that. Whichever pattern you want to follow. So the things, remaining things are same regarding materials, right? Regarding materials is same. Workmanship also is same. Then hearting, as I've told you, hearting, coins, and then regarding bond, right? Bond stone, all those things, and regarding curing, all those things are same. Okay, whatever you are writing for the previous one, the same thing you can write here, but only changes in the pattern and in the stones. Okay, so this is regarding ashlar masonry. Okay, now when do you require scaffolding? Scaffolding we require whenever your wall, okay, whenever your wall or whenever your stone masonry, anything which is going above 1.5 meters. Say 1.5 meter, 2 meters, it is exceeding that height, then you cannot reach. Normal human being cannot reach up to that height. Then what you have to do, you have to prepare this kind of temporary structures, so that a person can stand, or the laborer or the worker can stand, and he can prepare or he can construct your wall, right? So you prepare a scaffolding. So you can see in this image, you have a wall, right? You have a wall which is of a very large height, right? So these vertical members, they are called as standards. Okay, these vertical members are called as standards. These members which are horizontal connecting two standards, okay, connecting two standards are called as put logs. Okay, and you can see these members which are seen as a square in this, right, black color. So they are running in this fashion, right? They are running in this fashion. So they are called as ledgers. Okay, and this is our working platform. You can see this is your working platform here, and your constructor or your mason can stand on top of it and he can construct. Okay, so this is standard. This is what is standard. This is called put log, right? Put log. And then you have rakes. Okay, rakers, what you call as rakers to provide extra support. When your scaffolding is going very high, whenever it is going very high, you have to provide these kind of rakers, right? So that it is stable. Okay, this is a temporary structure. So remember, scaffolding is a temporary structure. Okay, so which is provides you a platform for standing and working. Okay, whenever your height of your construction goes above 1.5 meters. Okay, so scaffolding is not only used for wall work. It may be used for painting work, right? It may be used for plastering work. If you want to plaster this wall, or you want to paint the wall, or any service work or any maintenance work you want to do, so you can erect this scaffolding, right? You can erect the scaffolding. Okay, but in India, you can see they usually use these bamboos and they tie it with rope, right? And they stand on this. So they are superhumans. They are not afraid. You can see they are standing without any safety things, right? You can see here they are standing on proper platforms, but here you can see they are standing on the bamboo itself. Very dangerous. So no standards, and no one cares in India. So many accidents happen. There is loss of life. So make sure that whenever you start a construction, make sure your laborers are safe. Okay, so how do they erect this? So you can see that they use this bamboo, or what we call as vertical members as standards. Then they tie it with ropes, and the other end, okay, other end is placed in the wall itself, right? They use holes in the walls. They make holes, right, and they place the put log inside that hole itself, right? And then once your work is done, that is again patched up. Okay, so this is regarding scaffolding. 2 meters. Okay, so we are done with the brickbat, right? We have covered this. All these things you can read. It is very easy. Okay, coarse rubble masonry we have covered, right? Coarse rubble masonry regarding materials and all those things we have covered. Next. Okay, we have covered regarding, I have told you what is bond stone, what is quoins, joints and all are to be properly maintained, right? Curing I have told you, and measurement. Okay, then ashlar masonry is the same thing, only varying thing is the stone. Okay, so once this is done, now we'll look into brickwork. Okay, brickwork. After your stone masonry is done, we'll look into brickwork. Okay, regarding brickwork in first class, cement mortar 1:6. Okay, they have mentioned that they are going to use a cement mortar of 1:6. So what is 1 and what is 6? Can you tell what is 1 here and what is 6? What is this that they have provided 1:6?
Cement, sand. Sir.
What is cement and what is sand here?
1 is cement, 6 is sand. Sir.
This is cement and this 6 is sand, right? So 1:6 is the cement is to sand. Cement is to sand proportion. Cement is to sand proportion. So it can be varying, but in this case they have written for 1:6. Okay, in your case it may be 1:4 or 1:8, whatever, 1:5, whatever you have, whatever you are going to provide, you can mention. Okay, so as I've told you, the first thing always that you have to mention is materials, right? Materials. So it is brickwork. So obviously you have to use bricks, right? And the bricks should conform to IS specification, right? IS specification, your bricks should be of standard specification, right? What do you mean by standard? They should be prepared in a table mold. They should be well burnt, all those things. Next, they should be soaked well at least 12 hours before they are used. Very important, right? Bricks shall be well soaked at least 12 hours before they are used, right? You have to soak your bricks before 12 hours, before 12 hours of their use. Okay, make sure your bricks are soaked properly. Okay. Next, the proportioning. Proportioning is regarding your cement mortar. Proportioning, whatever you are going to give, no, 1:6, that you have to mention over here. See, they have mentioned 1 part of cement to 6 parts of sand, right? They have mentioned clearly. So that you have to mention over here. Next. And they have clearly also mentioned that it is to be done by volume. Okay, volume. What are the two methods of proportioning? One is volume and one more. So here they have told to volume. Proportioning is to be done by volume. What is the other method that can be used for proportioning?
Weighing.
Weighing, right? So we have two types. We have volume batching and we have weigh batching. Right? Volume batching and we have weigh batching. So which is accurate according to you? Which is more accurate?
Weigh batching.
Answer ಮಾಡ್ರಿ ಟಾಪರ್ಗಳು ಇದರಿಲ್ಲ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
So by weight.
By weight, right? By weight is always accurate compared to volume, because volume, it will change. Volume will change, density will change. As per that, your volume will change, right? So because of that, volume batching is usually not preferred. Weigh batching is preferred. Okay. But here they have mentioned by volume. So what do you do for volume? Whenever you want to this thing by volume, what? Batch by volume, there are standard boxes, right? Boxes of known volume, standard boxes of known volume, and then you use these boxes for your volume batching. Okay, and weigh batching is normally done by your weighing machines, right? You weigh your material and you batch. Okay, next thing, after your materials is done, as I've told you, we have to write regarding proportion, mixing, and then workmanship. Okay, mixing and workmanship. Mixing. So what is to be done in mixing? We have to properly mix. You have to say it has to be mixed within 30 minutes and it has to be used. Okay, the mortar has to be used within 30 minutes. Okay, that is the setting time of your initial setting time of your cement, right? Next, mixing shall be done on watertight platform. Take care that the platform which you are mixing on is watertight, or else if you do it on soil, your soil will take your water, right? So your water will be less for your concrete. It will be absorbed by your soil. Okay, so that has to be taken care of. That you have to mention in a specification. Then the type of bond you want, the type of bond and the bond, which type of laying you want, right? That you have to mention. Like in stone masonry, you are going to mention, right? Whether you are going for ashlar, whether you are going for coast, uncoast, or whether you are going for random arrangement, like that, you have to mention here also for bond. And when you are dealing with brickwork, okay, when you are dealing with brickwork, you have various types of bonds, right? You have these kind of various bonds. You have stretcher bond, recall, you have stretcher bond, you have header bond, you have English, Flemish, and various combinations, okay, and various combinations. So usually we go for this English bond, okay. Usually we go for English bond or we go for Flemish bond. Okay. So I hope you know the differences between each of these bonds. So in this, the bricks are laid in stretcher, right? Stretcher in staggered format, right? They are staggered so that the bond or the joints are not vertical, so that the joints are not in line, right? They are staggered. So here you can see in header, heads are laid, right, bricks, and this is English bond wherein you have stretcher layer and then header layer, stretcher, header, and here you have a mixture, right? In Flemish bond you have a mixture. So you can see this is English bond, this is English bond, and English bond, as I've told you, you have alternate layers of header and stretcher. Header and stretcher you have alternate. So you can see this is header layer, header, the brick is laid in this format, and this is your stretcher layer. Okay, alternate layers of headers and stretchers are laid in English bond. Okay, so this is how you have to mention regarding bond. You have to mention which bond you want to use, English bond, Flemish bond, all those things, and you have to mention whether the frog, right? The frog should be upward or it should be downward, whether in which orientation it has to be placed. So it is usually laid, the frog is to be placed upwards. Okay, unless mentioned clearly, it has to be placed upwards. Okay. Then joints, regarding joints, each brick shall be set with bed vertically, joints completely filled with mortar. Okay, you have to properly fill with mortar. The bed should be prepared with mortar, and on top of that you have to lay your bricks. On top of your mortar, on your mortar bed you have to lay your bricks. Okay, and you have to tamp it so that it stays in place properly. Okay, so this is regarding joints that you have to mention. Then if any fixtures are there, right, if any fixtures are there, like you have pipes, right, you have pipes, you have water outlets, anything, any electrical fixture if you have, so they have to be taken care of and they have to be properly embedded in your brickwork. Okay, in your brickwork, so that has to be taken care of, that you have to mention fixtures. Then soaking of bricks, as I've told you, you have to soak your bricks before you use, right? You have to soak your bricks in water and then use. Do not use directly dry bricks, or else it will not catch your mortar. It will not catch, and what it will start to do, it will start absorbing more water from your mortar, right? It will start absorbing water from a mortar or whatever it is, your plastering or whatever pointing you're doing, it will start absorbing water from that. So take care that you have to soak your bricks before you take it into use. Then progress of work. Next, workmanship, you are dealing with workmanship, right? So we have to raise, okay, 1 meter everywhere. Okay, we have to raise 1 meter everywhere and not higher than that. Okay, each layer should be 1 meter in height. Okay, and after that layer is properly cured, then you can go for the second layer or the second 1 meter layer on top of it. Okay, so suppose this is 1 meter. This is 1 meter. So you lay 1 meter everywhere throughout your room, 1 meter you raise, and then after this properly has hardened up, then you can raise your 1 meter next layer. Okay, throughout you have to raise. Okay, so remember 1 meter is the standard. Okay, then finishing of joints is there. Scaffolding, I've explained to you. Scaffolding, if your wall is going above your reach, then you have to use scaffolding. Okay, curing. So curing, mention curing. So mention curing that you have to do curing of 7 days. Okay, minimum period of 7 days. Okay, then measurement is to be done in square meters. Okay, remember, because the wall thickness is mentioned. Wall thickness is mentioned in your question, right? Mentioned 0.3 meter thick wall, right? Or the size of the brick is given. So that is what is the size of the wall. So whenever the size is given, like a partition for partition wall or half brick wall is mentioned, right? If that is the case, then you have to use in square meters. Okay, and if that is not provided, if that particular thing is not mentioned, then you can take it in cubic meters. Okay, depending upon whatever is the details given to you, you can either take in cubic meters or you can take in square meters. Okay, the same thing is applicable for half brick or what we call as partition wall. Right, same thing is used for this thing, but it is lesser in thickness, right? It is half brick thick. It is half in thickness, so it will not be very strong, right? It will not be very strong. So you have to provide reinforcement, right? You have to provide reinforcement for this particular wall, half brick thick wall. Okay. So curing and all these things are same. Measurement is also same, but let me show you. Right, so you have to provide reinforcement like this. You can provide a mesh, right? So this is not particularly a half thick or half brick wall. So this is a very thick wall, but whenever you have a half brick thick wall, you can use this kind of mesh, right? And various other kind of reinforcements are there, right? You can provide this kind of vertical bars, right? You can provide these vertical bars or these horizontal bars, which you can see here, right? Horizontal bars are there. And then here you can see very nicely they have arranged your bricks so that there is a cavity in between, and you can provide reinforcement between it, right? So horizontal bars can be provided, vertical bars, horizontal bars, and this kind of mesh can be provided as reinforcement. Okay, can be provided as reinforcement. So clearly you can observe in these figures. So these are half brick thick, right? Half brick walls. So you can see horizontal bars are placed in your wall. So you can see there are cavities, there are holes which are present in your brick, right? They and your this thing passes, or you can place your steel reinforcement in that. Okay, you can place your mortar and also with your steel reinforcement, that can be done, and various other forms. Okay, depending upon your design, you can instruct what has to be done clearly in your specification. Okay, you have to mention what and how it has to be done clearly. You have to mention in your specification. So this is regarding brickwork. So moving on, the very important thing now is cement concrete. Cement concrete work, cement concrete or CC, what we know, what we call in short form. That's CC work. So the first thing always is materials. So in cement concrete, so what are the materials that we use in concrete? We use cement, right? We use a binder. But here we have mentioned that cement is to be used, so binder is cement. Then we use fine aggregate, and then we use coarse aggregate. So these are the materials. Then material standards you have to mention for cement, for aggregates, for water, right? One more thing that is there here, important thing is water. And then there will be many admixtures. Okay, if any admixtures are required, that also you have to mention. Okay, then materials. First thing we'll deal with now is cement. Okay, cement has to be as per your IS standard. Okay, IS standard, and OPC is generally used, ordinary Portland cement. Coming to aggregates, we have two kinds. We have fine aggregate, we have coarse aggregate. So how do you distinguish between fine aggregate and coarse aggregate? What is the distinction used by size? What is the distinction made for coarse aggregate and fine aggregate based on size? How do you classify them based on size? What is the size for fine aggregate? Certain size of sieve you take, certain size of sieve, and if that passes, it is fine aggregate, and if it is retained, it is known as coarse aggregate. Right? What is the size of this sieve? Passing will be fine, retained will be coarse. Do you recall?
4.75 mm.
Correct, 4.75 mm, right? 4.75 mm is the size of sea which you use, or 4.75 mm passing is known as fine aggregate, and retained is known as coarse aggregate. Okay. Okay. So fine aggregate, it has to be natural sand. Okay. Usually natural sand is preferred, but nowadays it is very scarce. So you can go for alternatives. Okay. You can go for alternatives that you have to mention which material has to be used. You have to mention, and it has to be clean. Okay. Clean, all those things are free from organic matter, all those general things you have to mention. Then coarse aggregate, crust stone. Okay. Crust stone, it has to be angular. Okay. We prefer angular. We do not prefer flaky, elongated, spherical. You do not prefer that. You prefer angular ones. Okay, it can be crushed stone, it can be crushed boulders. Okay, graded between 4.75 to 40 mm. 40 mm to 4.75 is the range of your coarse aggregate. Then whatever water is potable or whatever is used for drinking, or whatever can be used for drinking, is suitable for your concrete preparation. Okay, potable water, what we call as, may be used for preparation of your concrete. Okay, coming to proportioning. Proportioning is to be done by volume, they say. Okay, but we prefer weigh batching. Okay, we prefer weigh batching. But what happens inside? Inside there is no provision for weighing, right? There is no provision for weighing. So what they do is they go for volume batching. We prefer weigh batching. So for volume batching, as I've told you, we take boxes of suitable sizes, and then we take the volume and then we batch them. Okay. And the cement usually comes in bag of 50 kgs, right? Cement comes in bag of 50 kgs, and if you convert this kgs to meter cube, so it will be 0.035 cubic meter. So 50 kg of cement will take 0.035 cubic meter of space. Okay. So next, after you mix, okay, after you mix, then measuring. Okay, not let us not get into mixing. First, we are still into proportioning. Okay, whenever you are dealing with volume batching, we are dealing with volume batching, you take boxes, right? You take boxes of standard size. You pour your material inside it. You pour your material, but after pouring, you should not shake the box. You should not shake the box. You should not ram. Okay, you should not ram. You should not vibrate it, or you should not pour it in a heap. You should not pour it in a heap. You should make it level. Okay, and then take that material. Okay, that has to be done. That has to be taken care of whenever you are dealing with volume batching. Okay, so this you have to mention in your specification clearly, so that this error does not come into your proportioning. Then it has to be done on dry volume. So whenever you are dealing with volume batching, make sure our material is dry whenever you are batching. Okay. Mixing. So whenever you are doing mixing, as I've told you, the platform on which you are mixing has to be watertight. So take care of that. Watertight platform has to be there, and you have to properly mix it until you have your required workability. Until your required workability is achieved, you have to properly mix it, and then you have to transport it. Next thing is regarding transporting. From mixing going up to laying. Okay, from mixing to laying, you have to transport your concrete, right? You have to transport it. So can you mention a few methods or a few techniques of transporting your concrete from one location to other location, or from mixing location to laying location?
Wheelbarrow and pumping.
Wheelbarrow and what?
Pumping.
Kaustubh, you said a wheelbarrow and what?
Pumping, sir.
Pumping, right? Very nice, very good answer. Wheelbarrow is what? Wheelbarrow, I'll show you what is a wheelbarrow. Okay, wheelbarrow can be used. Then you can use pumping method. Very nice. Pumping method. You can use any other method you can think of.
Trolleys.
Before that, Butti sir.
Yes, a very basic thing. Hiremat has said, Butti, you can use pan, what we call as, right? What we call as pan. So pan. Then Balu has said something. Balu, what was your answer?
Trolley, sir. Trolley.
Trolley. You can use trolley for transporting your concrete, right? So very nice answers I'm getting from your class. Any other? So you can use trolleys. You have told. You have used pan. You have told. Then you have told right? You have told pumps, then many other things. You have many other things. You have tremie, then you have many other things. You use cranes also, right? For transporting it to a larger height, you use cranes, right? Which are equipped with pumps. But many things are available, right? One more important thing you have left out is regarding RMC. How do you transport your RMC concrete?
Transit mixer, sir.
Transit mixer, very nice. Transit mixer you use. Transit mixer, right? Agitating trucks you use. So these kind of various things or various techniques you can use to transport your material from mixing to laying. Okay, so let me show you exactly how they are method of transporting. You can see mortar pan, or what your friend has called as butti, then wheelbarrow, very nice. You have told this. Truck mixer, agitating mixer, or dumpers you can use, right? Crane, I have told you, crane or buckets which are lifted by cranes. Okay, cranes or your cranes which are lifting buckets which are carrying concrete. Then ropeway, I'll show you ropeway, how exactly transportation is done by ropeway. You have belt conveyors, right? Belt conveyors to convey your concrete from one part to other. Then you have chutes. You have chutes. I'll show you what is this chute. I'll show you the skip and hoist. Okay, you have seen all this, but you do not remember the names, I think. Okay, transit mixer is what you have told. Truck mixer, transit mixer, same thing. Then pumps, you have also answered, pump and pipelines, right? And also a special case helicopter also can be used for placing concrete in very remote locations. So transportation of concrete. Now you have to tell me which image is showing what. So what is this? What is this? You have named it. Wheelbarrow. Okay, so this is a wheelbarrow. Now what is this?
Panel. Pan.
Ah, what is that? I didn't hear you clearly. Answer clearly. Don't hesitate, answer. You know what it is, but you are not answering.
Pan, sir.
Pan, right? Pan or butti, what you carry on your head, right? Then this is what? This is ropeway. Okay, you can see it is a ropeway. So concrete is poured in this bucket and concrete is transported, okay, using this ropeway. Okay, and this is what? This is skip and hoist. Skip and hoist. Here you can see this is skip and hoist. I'll show you one more image, so it will be clear. This is what? This is using belt conveyors, right? Conveyors. Then this is a transit mixer. Transit mixer. What is this? What is this? What is this? This particular image shows what? You pour your concrete over here. Okay, this bucket you can see pouring concrete over here, and from here this will take outlet. So what is this?
Pumping.
Right, it is a pump. It is a pump. Okay, concrete pump. Okay, you can see that it is coming out like this from the pump or the pipe, right? So it will pump your concrete. So you pour your concrete here and it will pump your concrete to a higher level or wherever your concrete is required. Okay, so from a transit mixer, the concrete is poured into this pump, right? It is poured into this pump. Okay, so what is this? What is this? It is there in this list. What is that? Can you identify which is?
Chute, sir.
It is chute. It is chute. Correct. So it is chute. Okay, chute. Then what is this? This is skip and hoist. Have you seen this particular machine inside? Have you seen this skip and hoist?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, no, you have seen, but you do not know the name. So it is called a skip and hoist. Okay, you pour your concrete in this bucket, and then this bucket will travel upwards, right? It will travel upwards. It will pour concrete, and again it will come back for taking the second load. And this is skip and hoist. Then after skip and hoist is after your transportation is done. We'll look after what is done after transportation. Okay, laying comes. Okay, once you transport, you have to lay your concrete. So as we know, we have to lay the concrete within 30 minutes. Okay, within 30 minutes of adding your water. Once you add water to mix your concrete, you have to lay it within 30 minutes, right? That is usually your initial setting time of your concrete, right? It starts to set after 30 minutes, right? So you have to pour your concrete, you have to lay your concrete, you have to properly ram, you have to properly compact, and you have to finish. All these things have to be done within 30 minutes, okay? Remember, very important. Okay, then concrete shall not be dropped. It should not be dropped from a height of 1 meter or greater than height of 1 meter. Very important. Whenever you are placing concrete, you should not drop your concrete, okay, into your formwork from a height of 1 meter or more, height of 1 meter or more. Suppose you want to pour your concrete here and you are dropping it from a height of 1 meter. You should not do that. It will cause segregation, right? It will cause segregation of your concrete. So that thing you have to take care. Then if you want to suspend your work, okay, if you want to suspend your work and you have to carry your work on the next day, make sure that you roughen the surface, you make the surface rough, okay, whatever you have poured, you make the surface rough, so that when you come tomorrow and you pour your fresh concrete, it will cause good bond between each of these layers. Okay, so that is there. Then regarding compaction. So what are the machines that you use for compaction? Can you name any machine that you use for compaction of concrete?
Vibrator.
Okay, vibrator is general. Under vibrator, you have many types of machines coming under vibrator. Can you recall?
Needle vibrator.
Right, so very good. So it is needle vibrator, which we use usually in the site. Needle vibrator. Any other kind of vibrator you recall? Needle vibrator. So needle vibrator, I'll tell you what it does. It penetrates into your concrete. Suppose this is the concrete which you have poured. So a needle vibrator will go inside. Right? It will go inside and it will vibrate it and it will cause compaction. Right? Compaction deals with the removal of your air voids. Okay, it deals with removal of your air voids. So one more type of vibrator is it will not go inside. It will not go inside. Suppose this is the surface. It will be acting on a surface. So this is known as surface compactor, surface vibrator. Okay, surface vibrator. So you have a machine like this. So it will vibrate the surface itself. It will not penetrate inside the concrete. So needle vibrator and surface vibrators. You have many types of vibrators. Okay, you can go through later. Okay, so in the specification, you have to mention clearly what kind of vibration you want to apply to your concrete. Whether you want to surface vibrate or you want a needle vibrator or whichever you want, you can mention, and that they have to carry out in the site. Okay. Now regarding formwork. Okay, formwork is provided for what? Formwork is provided so that your concrete attains the desired shape, right? Desired shape of your beam or your column, right? For that you have your formwork, right? So proper formwork has to be done. Proper shuttering and formwork is the same thing. Formwork and shuttering is the same thing. Centering is what you provide for the support of your formwork. Okay, centering is what you provide for the support of your formwork. Okay, they should be proper and they should be as per the required specifications. Okay, and they should be removed after curing of 14 days. Okay, once your 14 days curing is done, only then your formwork is to be removed. Okay, so you have formwork for beams, you have formwork for columns, slabs, right? Every other concrete work needs formwork because concrete is plastic. It is liquid in nature, right? Very fluid in nature. It will attain the shape of the formwork. So formwork is very necessary whenever you are dealing with concrete works. Okay, so clearly you have to mention in a specification formworks. Okay, then curing, very important, curing. So curing minimum period, as I've told you, 14 days for concrete. So can you name a few types of curing methods?
Waterlogging.
Waterlogging, very nice. Waterlogging. Next, any other method? Or you not cure your, I think others do not cure because they are not answering. Curing is very important.
By gunny bags.
Gunny bags. You place gunny bags and then you pour water on those gunny bags. Okay, you maintain the temperature. You maintain moisture in the gunny bags.
Using
Membrane
chemical
curing.
compound.
Chemical compounds, using some chemical compound. Hanumant has said using chemical compounds, right? Very answer, very good answer, very good answer. Any other, someone was answering?
Membrane curing, sir.
Membrane curing, Uttam, very nice answer. Membrane curing is one more type of curing, very unique type of method, very unique method of curing. Membrane curing, wherein you do not apply any water. One more method you're forgetting, one more method regarding water.
Bonding types, sir.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Hiremat.
Sorry, the ponding types are near also say.
Ponding or what we call as waterlogging, right? Waterlogging. That is what we usually do for slabs, right? What we do for slabs, waterlogging. One more important, I think you have forgot steam curing, right? Which we usually do in labs, right? Specialized labs are there for experimental work wherein we use steam curing. Okay, that you have forgotten. Let me show you. You can see they are applying water and they are cooling the temperature down of the concrete. Then this is what applying membranes on top of your concrete, membrane curing. This is waterlogging, right? Or ponding, what you call ponding. And then they are spraying certain special chemicals, right? Chemicals. And then this is using gunny bags, right? Gunny bags. Okay. So you can see types of curing: immersion, right, or ponding, what we call, then spray or fogging, wet covering. Okay. So types of curing, and then in specification, you have to mention, okay, you have to mention what type of curing has to be followed. Okay, whether the concrete has to be water cured or whether it has to be specially cured using any chemical compounds or all those other methods, whichever you want, you can specify, and that has to be followed in the site. Okay. So that has to be mentioned, and the curing days has to be mentioned. Okay, curing days. Then measurement, as I've told you, concrete works has to be measured in cubic meters. So we have covered 9 items. I was hoping to cover 10 items. Should I cover this RCC works and finish up, or should we end the class over here?
End, sir. Time up, sir.
Time up, Ray. Okay, we'll end the session here. I hope you have understood. I hope if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We have time, we have 5 minutes. Okay, so we have covered many things today. We have covered 9. I was hoping to cover 10. Okay, no problem. Please, everyone needs to answer whether you have understood today's session. If you have, no problem.
Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Yes, others, everyone, I have said everyone should answer.
sir.
It is
Yes, sir,
time for your
Yes, sir.
attendance.
Yes, sir.
Everyone should-
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Understood, sir.
Very good. Awesome.
Understood, sir.
Yes, sir.
Understood. No problem. Any questions? One question I have, one basic question I have, regarding curing. Why do we cure our cement, or why do we cure our concrete? We'll answer this question and we'll finish up.
Extra strength, sir.
To reduce the heat of hydration.
Why do we require for strength?
No, sir, to reduce the heat of hydration.
To reduce the heat of hydration. Very nice answer. Very perfect answer you have given. To reduce the heat of hydration, right? Whenever your water reacts with your cement, your hydration reaction takes place. That causes liberation of heat, right? It liberates a lot of heat. So to make sure that heat of hydration is maintained, the heat of hydration is lowered, right? The heat is removed. We cure, right? We cure our concrete, right? What happens if we do not cure? That heat of hydration will cause water to evaporate, right? Especially from the surface, or because of any weather condition, hot weather conditions. What will happen is the water from your surface will start to evaporate, and your cement will not have enough water to react with. Okay, so take care of that. We use curing, right? We have various methods of curing. Okay. So with this, I think we can end today's session, and in the next session, we'll try to go fast. Okay, we'll cover more items. Okay, so as I've told you, remember, very important, what you have to write in specification. The first thing that you have to write in specification is regarding materials. What materials are you going to use? What are the specifications of those materials? Okay, what they have to specify. Then regarding proportioning, you have to write proportioning, mixing, right? And then details regarding any transportation if required, transportation. Then after that is done, you have to mention regarding curing, regarding finishing, right? Sequentially, all these things you have to mention. Then after all these things are done, you have to mention regarding testing, if any testing. And then lastly, you have to mention regarding measurements, okay? Cubic meter, square meter, all those things you have to mention. Okay, so these are some general things regarding specification. Okay. So it is mainly theory. Okay, mainly theory. You can read and you can remember. Okay, you have to remember for each of the items separately, and each of the items you have to mention separately. Okay, in exam they'll ask you any of these items, and they'll tell you to write the specification. Okay, for example, cement mortar for plastering 1:3. Write the specification for this. They'll mention. Okay, then you have to write. Okay, materials, whatever I told, right? Materials, proportioning, mixing, placing, right? Finishing, all those things in sequence you have to write. Okay, so this is regarding specifications. In the next class we will continue with the other things. I think we require 2 more classes to finish specifications, and then we will head on to analysis of rates. That is the second part of your third module, analysis of rates. Okay, so you can type in our attendance, and meanwhile if anyone has any questions, you are free to ask. The session is open. Type in our attendance, and if anyone is having any doubts, please feel free to ask. Also, if you have any suggestions, if you have any opinions to share, please do not hesitate to share your thoughts. Everyone, please type in our attendance. Do not, no one should miss our attendance. Quickly type in our attendance. Okay, so quickly type in our attendance. Quickly, 1 minute. No, if you are there for the entire class but you have not given the attendance, it will not, your attendance will not be considered. Make sure you have typed in. Okay.
Sir, and we just join for the attendance and give attendance then?
You have to come. How can you join at the last, right? I have to approve while you are entering, right? So if you are there, if you are joining at the last, I will not allow you to enter the class. Doesn't matter. I cannot check everyone whether you are there or whether or not. Because of that, I'll be asking questions to check whether you are active or not. Okay, so make sure you are active. Make sure you are answering. Okay, and stay till the end of the class, and then answer, and then give your attendance. Okay.